Hey, what's happening, guys? Thank you as always for stopping by the channel. I really do have just a special video for you guys today. It's the final episode of my top 100 movies from the 1980s. We've reached the final 10 movies on this massive list, and I gotta say, top 10 lists don't get much better than the collection of movies that I'm about to cover with you guys today. Now, if you've been here since the beginning, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. We've reached the top of the mountain, as they say. If you're just joining us, you can find all the past episodes of the series down in the description, as well as all the synopsises for these movies. So without any further delay, let's get into this list of 10 legendary movies. Coming in at number 10 is a sports comedy about an underdog team that made it their mission to win as many games as possible, simply to give the team owner a big old shitburger to eat. And that sports comedy would be the 1989 classic Major League, starring Charlie Sheen, Tom Berenger, Rene Russo, Wesley Snipes, and Corbin Burnson, and many others from director David S. Ward. Now, to me, Major League is just one of those movies that will still be as hilarious 50 years from now as it is right now, as it was back in 1989. The ensemble cast is perfect for this oddball collection of scrubs that come together to surprise everybody. It's a hilarious Cinderella sports story about a group of guys who learn to love one another and who learn to play together. The baseball action is impressive. The cast really did put in the work, and seeing them on the field taking ground balls and pitching and hitting just creates an immersive sports angle to this movie, one that blends perfectly with the excellent writing, because the sense of humor shines in this movie. It's crude, it's crass, it's also clever, and it's both sharp and witty, resulting in a complete comedic package. Next up at number 9 is an iconic sequel that, when it was released, simply said, get ready for the next world war. And that would be when Rocky would meet Drago in Russia on Christmas in 1985's Rocky IV, written by, directed by, and starring Sylvester Stallone, alongside Dolph Lundgren, Talia Shire, Carl Weathers, Burt Young, and Tony Burton. There's no denying Rocky IV is just a classic, and its excess and melodrama are what 80s movies are all about. Rocky literally and figuratively climbs a mountain as he battles Drago. The death of Apollo is still one of the most heartbreaking moments in 80s cinema, and the perfect gasoline for Balboa's revenge. Dolph Lundgren as Drago is just villainous perfection, and with little words, he truly speaks with his thundering power. It's a simple story filled with amazing montages and pulse-pumping 80s music as two worlds collide. It's all cheesy, but just cheesy in the ways you want it to be. The boxing sequences are the definition of just adrenaline pumping, and despite this movie being a Stallone ego stroke, it's still one of the best movies to come out of the decade. Moving along to my number 8 movie, I have a comedy about the cross-country family vacation from hell in the 1989 comedy National Lampoon's Vacation, starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Anthony Michael Hall, Dana Barron, and Randy Quaid, directed by Harold Ramis and written by John Hughes. Slapstick humor doesn't get much better than it does when coming from Chevy Chase, and his turn as Clark Griswold is iconic in this movie. I mean, sure, he's probably more remembered for Christmas Vacation, but the comedy that he delivers in this just wild summer trip to Wally World is top-notch and never fails in delivering hysterics, from subtle innuendo to in-your-face dialogue to the physical and situational laughs. This movie is rarely not funny, but I mean, at the core of it all is plenty of heart. I mean, Clark's heart is always in the right place, which makes his incompetence that much more endearing and lovable. I think the cast overall is fantastic. D'Angelo is just a perfect pairing with Chase. Quaid as Cousin Eddie is world class, and the laughs come from even the smallest of characters as the Griswolds bumble their way across the country. Next up for my number 7 pick, I have a science fiction action thriller about an alien that came to Earth to hunt, but if it bleeds, they could certainly kill it, in the 1987 John McTiernan classic Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, Jesse the Body Ventura, Bill Duke, and Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator. I would easily consider Predator to be a perfect film for what it set out to accomplish. The collection of studs in this movie could easily rival the Expendables, which makes their being toyed with in the jungle by something otherworldly that much more suspenseful. I mean, as the viewer, you were thrown into the meat grinder with Dutch and his crew, and the on-location shoots are fantastic. They're absolutely immersive. The film is fast-paced. It keeps a simple plot, but still maintains its freshness as it just weaves action and bravado and tension with ease. The practical action in this movie is intense. The Predator is one of the 80s most iconic characters. He's a total badass, and the bare bones finale here with no dialogue and Silvestri's score is still one of the best third acts in cinema, as Arnold goes head to head with the Predator in a thrilling game of survival that delivers a timeless intensity. My number 6 movie is about a team of scientists that bought an old fire station, and when they did, no spook, specter, or ghost would ever be safe again, and that team would be the Ghostbusters from 1984, directed by Ivan Reitman, starring a first-class comedic lineup consisting of Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, and Rick Moranis. I just love everything about this movie: the cast, the story, the vibe, the music, and the blend of genres. It is a perfect recipe for a timeless adventure that you can always be consumed by. The humor absolutely hits. There's a charming chemistry between Murray, Aykroyd, Hudson, and Ramis, with Weaver and Moranis serving as just impressive side characters that also leave very much of their own impression on the movie overall. But I mean, I think what really makes this movie so much fun is its creative ambition and its unique adventure. The laughs are stitched nicely into the narrative, and it complements the action sequences and the science fiction to just create an engaging balance that can easily take you on a ride, even if you've already seen it many times before. I think the script in this one is tightly written. The special effects, despite their age, still hold up well, and simply put, this is a movie that's having fun with itself, so you can naturally have fun with it and its lovable characters, with or without nostalgia being needed. And with that said, we've reached the number 5 position, and here I have a movie that just captures everything that's just warm and fuzzy about action movies from the mid-80s, as John Rambo would embark on a one-man mission in 1985's Rambo First Blood Part 2, directed by George P. Cosmatos, starring Sylvester Stallone, Richard Crenna, Martin Kove, Charles Napier, Stephen Burkhoff, and Julia Nixon. While not nearly as serious as First Blood, the gratuitous violence and just the excess of Rambo 2 is what made the character iconic and just the franchise iconic as a whole. The plotline is simple. Rambo's a one-man army, and it's a delightful buffet of killing and massive explosions. The on-location shoots pulls you into the middle of this mission that just abandons Rambo deep in enemy territory. I mean, you know he's going to make it out alive, and the body count that he piles up in doing so is just a master class of cinematic gusto and excess that just encapsulated just the 80s action genre as a whole. Stallone here was just in peak form in 85. He was a walking action figure, and watching him just dispense carnage is a joy to behold. He really breaks out all his skills and his arsenal to just capture how truly deadly he was, and it's just macho bravado at its finest as Stallone rips through an army and blows up an entire jungle while doing so. We're stepping into the action genre for my number 4 pick, a movie that single-handedly changed the landscape of the genre when John McClane arrived at Nakatomi Plaza for a company Christmas party in the 1988 actioner Die Hard, of course starring Bruce Willis, Alan Rickman, Reginald VelJohnson, and Bonnie Bedelia from director John McTiernan. I mean, what can you say about Die Hard that hasn't already been said? It's a timeless classic as well, and it just changed the game for the action genre with a character type and a plot line that's still being replicated in action movies to this day. I mean, Bruce Willis is perfect here. He is John McClane, and his everyman charm mixed with his action hero moxie is just a thing of legend. I think Alan Rickman is just an amazing villain as Hans Gruber. He's a commanding foe for McClane in this fast-paced story. story. The action really is frequent as McClane delivers the wrong place, wrong time scenario sans shoes with just endless appeal in my opinion. McClane delivers punishment and takes plenty of his own in this just immersive action movie set inside Nakatomi Plaza, and Die Hard just delivers tons of memorable moments and quotable lines. Willis is at his action movie best here, and Die Hard isn't just a classic Christmas movie, it's a perfect action flick and better than many that are still being released today. Now, my number 3 movie also changed the landscape of the action genre, but in a completely different way, as Mel Gibson and Danny Glover would make Riggs and Murtaugh the gold standard for buddy action in 1987's Lethal Weapon, directed by Richard Donner. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. I prefer Lethal Weapon just a little bit over Die Hard. Like I just said, Die Hard and Bruce Willis, this is a fantastic film overall, but I mean, to me, the combination of Gibbs and Glover as Riggs and Murtaugh is just a match made in heaven. I think these guys are like peanut butter and jelly together, and this tightly crafted, just gritty cop story is an impressive origin story for them. This movie delivers plenty of practical action and wild set pieces and fight sequences, but there's heart and layering to the characters that makes you love them individually, which I think only makes you love them together each more, because don't get it wrong, this is a buddy cop violent action movie, but it's also a bit of a romance story as Riggs and Murtaugh grow to love each other as brothers. It delivers textbook villains with Gary Busey really shining in a sadistic role, and Lethal Weapon just has an edginess to it, a bit of a primal sexiness to it as well, that creates just an enticing atmosphere for violence as things go from business to personal in just delightfully bloody ways, in my opinion. Now, next up for my number 2 pick is just a beloved film to me. It's the ultimate childhood adventure from director Richard Donner about a group of kids trying to save their homes, and that group of kids would be The Goonies from 1985, starring Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Ke Huy Quan, Josh Cohen, Cary Green, Martha Plimpton, and Josh Matuzak as Sloth. This movie just holds a special place in my heart. Anytime I'm sick or feeling a bit down in life, escaping into this movie can instantly make me feel just a little bit better. It's the ultimate tale of childhood adventure filled with action and just coming of age moments, endearing childhood friendship and lighthearted humor and suspense, and it's just all put together to be the perfect recipe. The cast is fantastic across the board, from the Goonies themselves led by Mikey to the Fratellis led by Ann Ramsey. I think everybody really does leave their impression on the story. The locations are just very immersive. They create a lighthearted but still kind of gloomy and ominous mood that's just right for the setting of this tale of missing treasure. And I mean, The Goonies is just a movie I think that can appeal to the kid inside of us all, to bring us back to the days when we believed in urban legends and extraordinary stories. And despite the wild absurdity of much of this movie, there is a grounded charm to it all. These kids really are being themselves. Their flaws really are their strengths, and The Goonies for me will just be a movie that I'm watching until the day I die. And for my number 1 pick, my favorite movie from the 1980s, another movie I deem to be essentially perfect, a movie about a kid who was never on time for class, he was never on time for dinner, and one day he wasn't in his time at all, in the Robert Zemeckis classic Back to the Future from 1985, starring Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Crispin Glover, and Tom Wilson. This is my number 1 choice. It was easily my number 1 choice. Back to the Future is a perfect film. It's also just a perfect cinematic tale with perfectly crafted characters and plot progression. Back to the Future was completely out of the box, and it created a fresh, engrossing story with a flawless use of time travel. I mean, it just takes you on a time period hopping saga filled with weird family interactions and comedy and adventure and friendship and action, all sprinkled throughout the mission of Marty McFly trying trying to get home. I think Michael J. Fox is phenomenal in this role. He really captures the growth and layering of the character with ease and just very naturally. I think it makes you instantly care about this guy, and his friendship with Doc Brown, I think, is shoulder to shoulder with Riggs and Murtaugh, because Christopher Lloyd is also just first class in this role. He really did make it his own. But I mean, what makes this movie so magical, I think, is its blend of cinematic elements, from storytelling and acting and special effects and just story development and scoring and editing and so much more. I think everything is riding at full speed, and the result is an endearing journey filled with meaningful quiet moments and just engulfing climactic cinematic moments that are just part of the reasons why I fell in love with movies as a kid. And that concludes my list, guys, my top 100 movies from the 1980s. Thank you all so much for taking the time to embark on this journey through just a great decade with me. I really do hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to get back to some other videos for a little while I prep for my next major project behind the scenes, which will, of course, be a top 100 movies from the 1990s series. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. You're all amazing. And until the next video, I'll see you guys at the movies.